Okay. And then Eric, I'll let you introduce yourself as our facilitator, but I just wanted to remind folks to keep themselves muted when you're not sharing. And then if you could just identify yourselves too when you are sharing, that would be great. And then Eric, hey, what's your pleasure? We've been mostly introducing people, just having them introduce in the chat because we're not going to take time to go around the table. And so doing a quick hello in the chat, and then when folks do speak, they can share a little bit more about themselves. Does that sound okay to you, Eric?
Yep, that sounds great. My name is Eric Yvonne. I work for AVCP. I'm the community development manager here for transportation, and I've been here for 3 years now. I've had the pleasure of working under Clarence Daniel. I started off as the safety officer somewhat, and I took care of the safety programs. And when Clarence moved up in the world, I was fortunate to fill in that slot. And I came over from AVCP housing. I worked in the housing field for over a decade, and I took my tribal experience and I tried to implement it here in transportation. And I'm very thankful for all the work that Shelley's done. I'm very thankful for all the people that are on here today. I know that we're taking time out of your busy schedules, but there's so much important information that we've been covering. It has been well worth the time, and I appreciate everybody's involvement in the matter. And please don't feel shy to speak up and share your ideas. That's the best way that we can move forward with the type of work that we do, is from input from the community. So if we can have people engage and have conversations with us and share your ideas, you are 100% more than welcome to come on and feel free to be part of our process here. We're all the same community. We're all the same place. We're all trying to get the same goals accomplished, and we need to find some place for us to marry and figure out solutions to some of the problems that we have. And this is a great format for that to happen. From the previous conversations I've seen from the other breakout sessions, we got some great conversations going with housing, and I'm hoping we can do the same thing here with transportation, and I'm sure we will. But thank you, Shelley. Thank you, Agni Beck, for all the hard work that you guys have done. This has been an amazing few days of meaningful information. And, every time I get onto these breakout sessions, I'm just wowed by everybody's comments and all the information they put on the table. And, it just amazes me that, there's these ideas that we never even tapped into or thought of. And here it comes out of left field, like, wow, it kind of changes the course of things. But sometimes courses need to be changed. And that's what we're doing here, is trying to find solutions to these issues, but with meaningful conversations with our community. So thank you for the opportunity to be here and help you guys connect and share ideas. But Shelley, we can get started. And like you said, I like the idea of everybody going into the chat and introducing themselves and who you work for and what your interests are and those type of issues, because those are very meaningful. We love to see where you're from. We love to see what you're all about and what you want to do here, so we can start taking your ideas and implementing them.
Awesome.
I think that'll be good for introduction, Shelley.
That's great. And I see
if we can get started.
Hey, Eric, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, okay. We have a little bit of a different mode for our transportation conversation. I can see everyone's sharing where they're from. This is awesome in the chat. So thanks, everybody. Appreciate that. The one thing that's a little bit different about our transportation conversation this morning is we have really a unique opportunity with a couple of friends that are joining us. Jerry Sumter and Cordelia Kelly from Senator Murkowski's office are on with us this afternoon. And so recognizing the busyness that those folks have with a lot happening in DC and the senator's work towards Alaska interests, fantastic. We know that everyone is really busy. I wonder, we were hoping, and I have to credit Mike Black with this credit. Oh, and Amber. Hi, Amber. Welcome. And so wanted, if the three of you folks were going to hand the baton or the microphone to you almost immediately. And Mike had really had the idea that, wow, wouldn't it be great to have Senator Murkowski's staff and the team provide this group with a briefing on the infrastructure package. And I know that's on all of our minds. And actually, Jerry, Cordelia, Amber, I should just share with you guys that the infrastructure package has come up, not just, of course, in the context of transportation, but we've definitely talked about that in the context of communications. And then again, in the housing and water sewer infrastructure dialogue that happened a little bit earlier. So I just wanted to share with you that folks may have a couple of questions beyond and climate change too. Thanks, Miranda. And so folks will likely have questions for you beyond just the very specific topic of transportation. And so if okay with you, Cordelia, Jerry, Amber, can I hand you the microphone to kick us off with a little overview of where we're at with the infrastructure package?
Yeah, hi Shelley, this is Amber Ebarb. I'm Deputy Staff Director at the Senate Committee on Indian Affairs. Senator Lisa Murkowski is the Vice Chairman. And I'm here with my colleagues, Cordelia Kelly and Jerry, who are in the state office for Senator Murkowski. I'm happy to kick us off and do a backgrounder on the infrastructure package. And then just you're probably familiar with Jerry and Cordelia, but I just wanted to give them the opportunity to do short introductions as well.
Jerry, would you like to go first?
I think you're muted, Jerry.
That's Cordelia. I can't get my video started, sorry.
Oh,
Okay, we definitely can see you, but I can go ahead and go. So, Ublulotuk, everybody. My name is Cordelia Kelly. My Inupiaq name is Kelaniak. My family's from the North Slope. My mom and my family's from Wainwright. And so I serve as Special Assistant for Rural Affairs, and I'm Alaska-based staff along with Jerry. So I am downtown in Anchorage on the lands of Dena'ina and work in Peterson Tower. And so I'm a local Alaska-based point of contact for our community members to reach out to with any questions that they might have, or and really happy to be able to play that role connecting with our community members and those that are in DC and in our office. And so really delighted to be here today and to listen to this conversation and hear more about what people are thinking and what the issues are, what the concerns are, and of course to be able to be here with Amber and Jerry and be able to share a little bit more about infrastructure package. So, you know.
thank
Well,
you.
good
Jerry,
afternoon,
Jerry, we
everyone.
can actually see you.
Oh, good.
just to let you know, except we can just see from about your lips up. So why don't you go for it? It works.
All right. Hi, everybody. My name is Jerry Sumter. Some of you know me as Jareen. I am born and raised in the Bethel area. And my late father and mother were James and Dorothy Hoffman. Napai, I've got relatives all over also. I can tell you right now, I haven't been home in 2 years because of COVID. I'm extremely homesick. Some of my family I haven't seen for 2 years, and I am here to listen, and I will hand it off to Amber. Everybody, great to be on. Thank you.
Thanks, Jerry and Cordelia. We're really happy to be here. It's like 5:30 here on the East Coast, so I'm working. I feel a little bit late on a Friday, but I'm really happy to be here to share a little bit of the background on Senator Murkowski's work on the infrastructure package. We think this is really important for the state of Alaska and for Alaska Native communities in particular. But before I get into that, my Tlingit introduction is Jendukla Yuchatuasak, Yefmachesati Klanedi Ayachat, Wishkitan Yeti. My Tlingit name is Jendukla, and I'm of the Klanedi clan, the Raven Dog Salmon clan, and my family, my mom's family is from Huna and grandparents from Angoon. And my father's people are the Wishkitan, Eagle Shark Clan. But back to infrastructure, I was really honored to work with the senator on a number of working groups in the development of the infrastructure package as staff on the Indian Affairs Committee. She also had a number of staff working on this from the Appropriations Committee in the personal office as well. She was a group of senators who worked in a bipartisan way to come up with a framework, the bipartisan infrastructure framework, $1.2 trillion, 550 billion in new spending, and the G20, including the House side, or the G10 on the Senate side. She was really pivotal in finding agreement on the components of the spending bill, including what amounts would go to water, water infrastructure, resiliency, broadband, transportation. So once those buckets were agreed on, the staff were assigned to different working groups to help fill out the programs that would be included and what priorities would be met in the bipartisan infrastructure bill. She was really focused on making sure that there was equitable inclusion for Alaska Native priorities, American Indian Alaska Native, as well as the priorities for Alaska, including ports and ferries, and addressing some of the impacts of COVID on our tourism economy and things like that. I think some of the things that are of interest for this group are probably, I heard some of this mentioned already in the comments: climate change, water and sewer, and broadband. So we had received significant testimony over the last year in the Indian Affairs Committee on the need for improved water and sanitation infrastructure. And we saw a major opportunity in that working group to secure some of the resources needed to address longstanding needs in communities in Alaska who are unserved or underserved with water and sewer. And so one of the, I think one of the most significant wins is the inclusion of the Indian Health Service Sanitation Construction Program and the $3.5 billion in funding there to complete all identified sanitation projects. The senator, we had received testimony from ANTHC earlier in the year about the funding needed in Native communities for sanitation and its significant impact on health. So we saw the direct link there between how the lack of infrastructure throughout rural Alaska had really exacerbated the impact of the pandemic. So this would be very transformational. It would be over 5 years, and one of the important things that was included there, I think, is the ability to fund projects above the unit cost limit. So that's an issue that we've been hearing and testimony from Alaska communities and tribal leaders for years. So we're very excited about that inclusion and looking forward to its implementation. There were also positive funding that we secured in the Bureau of Indian Affairs appropriations title that is to address the impacts of climate change and improve resilience in Native communities. That's the $130 million for community relocation and $86 million for tribal climate resilience and adaptation projects. And in addition to that, I think the other major program is broadband. And we had included in the COVID relief bill in December 2020, about $1 billion for the tribal connectivity broadband grants. The first round of that had gone out earlier this year, or the application NOFO, the deadline was September 1. So you're probably familiar with the efforts related to there in the tribes, and ANC is working together on numerous applications. I heard, I think NTIA said that the applications that they received totaled 5 billion. So there is tremendous need in the tribal broadband arena. This bipartisan infrastructure package includes an additional $2 billion for the program and extends the timeline for the funding to be used, and then it creates additional rounds of applications. So that will be significant. In addition to some of the state broadband grants, there's about I think 45 billion for the state formula grants. So that would supplement the efforts through the tribal broadband program, and an additional amount for middle mile build out and some emergency broadband benefits. I think there was another bucket there that would supplement a lot of the work that the tribes and the native organizations would be able to implement. So we know that the need is great. We're really looking forward to the additional resources for broadband. And on transportation, there is key highway programs included. There were significant amounts in there that reauthorize and increases. One of the things I think I saw in your notes before from last year, the previous meeting, was about ice roads. And so there was an ability here. There's a new set aside within the Surface Transportation Block Grant Program for projects in rural areas of the amount apportioned to a state up to 15% may be used on eligible projects, including maintenance of ice roads, or transferred to the Denali Commission. So just wanted to highlight that since I saw that in your notes before, and point out that this could be really beneficial in addressing some of the needs that you have there. Those are some of the highlights. There's much more in here. Eligibility for programs in the energy title for grid resilience, and we have pulled together a one pager. Actually, it's not. It's probably more like 3 or. We have a long document that's probably like 15 pages that shows all the tribal provisions, and then we have a one pager of the key provisions. So I'll be sure to send that along so you can refer to that. And I think that wraps it up. We had a large number of staff working on this. So I mostly focused on the tribal provisions, but there were many other programs included in the infrastructure package that relate to airports, buses and ferries, railroads, permitting, ports, supply chains, energy efficiency and building infrastructure, wildfire management. So I can't speak to many of those other titles, but I just wanted to point out that there is a lot more included here that will benefit Alaska and rural Alaska and Native communities.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Amber. Would love to have open the floor and have folks ask any questions that they have. I mean, maybe one initial question. So would be great to get the resources that you talked about that provide the summary so that we can share those in our follow-up correspondence. We're recording all of these conversations and doing really detailed notes. I guess the one thing I'm just thinking of last year's outcomes and the focus on trails, trail safety, that kind of stuff. And not sure if I heard you mention that exactly, and maybe I'm off track with my question. I'm just curious if that was addressed or considered, given that a lot of tribes have trails as a part of their tribal transportation program as part of their inventories.
I will need to double check on trails. I think that if they're regularly included as something that can be a part of these funding streams, then I think they would be a part of the transportation title here. I'll have to double check and get back with you on that one.
Okay. Great. So I wonder, we've got a lot of friends gathered here, and so curious if folks that are online have questions that they would like to ask Amber. Since we have the really unique opportunity to have these folks join us right now, any questions? And I would say it doesn't have to just be transportation, given that the infrastructure package clearly covers a broader suite of topics. Any lurking questions out there among the group? Not really seeing any, Amber.
That's fine.
So, yeah.
Shelley?
Yeah.
Hey, just touching on what you just briefly talked about, the trails portion. You know, it's so important that we address and recognize the trails of the villages and the tribes, because you know, when I leave my office, there's a paved road that takes me all the way to my apartment. And those are our highways, those are roads, those are access points. In the villages, these trails, they're not developed, but they're used just as heavily as we use the highway and the roadways here. That's the roadways for the villages. And I always say, you know, the villages in our region is in the Wild West stages for development. We're still years and years, hundreds of years behind, you know, the lower 48 states. So when I think of development, I think of it that way. I think of us as just starting off like a new country. We have no roads, we have no infrastructure, but these traditional trails and roadways, they were developed based on dog mushing trails, and these were the most reasonable, most comfortable, the most reasonable ways to get from point A to point B. And that's a really good way to think of things from the traditional aspect. You know, there was no bells and whistles to the routes that these guys chose. They just chose the easiest route to their location to go hunting. You know, they didn't go past a mountain that's 2 miles this way, so they get a little scenic route. But the lack of waste that the people that used these types of knowledges to develop their roadways is something that I try to adopt myself when I'm thinking of developing roadways and things like that. You know, these folks existed out here for thousands of years, and there's a testament to their way of thinking. But I just like to put that out there, that these roadways, they're not considered roadways to us, but to them in the villages and the tribes, this is their roadway. This is their route. It's not approved, but this is what they use. So just to put that out there, you know, this is, I'm from Akachek. I grew up riding these trails to school and going hunting and things like that. So, but it would be great to see them further developed. I know there's some situations and locations that don't want any of these resources touched. They want to stay the way it is. But there are other communities that want roadways in those areas, so they can start driving to places to pick berries, to go fishing, to go moose hunting, things like that. But yeah, just to put that out there, that's my take on, you know, the roadways that people might not consider roadways, you know, traditional trails. But I'd like to start working on trying to develop more of a recording, because I know there's a lot of basic old traditional trails that aren't on routes, and in some places these trails have been lost. Even the people in the communities in traditional towns, even they don't know where these routes are, because you know, now snow machines cut through wherever and you can get to any place very easily, but a lot of times you're encroaching on people's property. But yeah, this is my little input on what I feel about, you know, the accessibility of things in our traditional villages.
Thanks, Eric.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Amber.
Yeah, I was curious. I saw someone posted a question in the chat about timing. And so I was just going to try to prognosticate. It's a bit difficult right now because you have the reconciliation package that is being debated as well. And there's a bit of a game being played between the progressive wing of the Democratic Party and then the moderates in the Senate and the House, and whether the bipartisan infrastructure package will get a vote before or after the reconciliation bill. And the only timing I have really in mind now is that the surface transportation bill is only extended through the end of October. So that's the next sort of lever that we have here, that or a cliff of some sort where if there's not an extension of that authorization, then that's included in the bipartisan infrastructure bill. So they'll either have to do another standalone extension of that or pass the bipartisan bill. Hopefully we could see something by the end of October, but I think that's pretty optimistic. I think there's some questions still that are unresolved about what the reconciliation package will look like in terms of overall top line number. I've been monitoring what's going on the House side and the negotiations on the reconciliation bill. The Democrats had ended the week without a framework agreement on their reconciliation package, but they're going to continue negotiating that through the weekend on some issues. But I don't know, even if they agree on a lower number, if that means that we'll end up getting a vote on the infrastructure, the bipartisan infrastructure bill. It would help things if they can reach an overall top line number. But there's so many things in the air, and it's hard to successfully prognosticate on this. We're very hopeful that eventually Congress will want something, and the most likely to go through would be the bipartisan bill. Hopefully we would get something instead of nothing. That's why we're focusing so much on the bipartisan infrastructure package and what's in there. There's additional amounts in the reconciliation package, but we haven't been super involved in that process because it only requires 50 votes in the Senate, and it's being drafted by the majority right now. But you might be interested in that as well. But our engagement mostly was on the infrastructure, the bipartisan bill, which has a lot of good things in there, and we're really excited about it.
Cool. The one related question I think Miranda asked was, what was the set aside for ice roads? Again, I think you mentioned that, Amber. If that's at your fingertips still, that would be awesome to get that articulated again in our notes.
It says of the amount apportioned to a state. It doesn't say how much specifically for ice roads, just that an amount up to 15% could be used on eligible projects, including maintenance of ice roads.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay, thank you. Other folks that have questions, and then I do think we can transition, but I recognize that this is really a unique opportunity too. And all of this is happening right now. We're in the throes of intense discussions. Are there any other lurking questions out there? We really want to make sure that folks feel comfortable and have the opportunity to ask.
Well, this is Mike Black. I just wanted to say that with the water sewer dollars that are going through Indian Health Service and then removing the limitations on that money, I mean, that is a absolutely wonderful development. Obviously, for many years, it's been difficult to try to push a rock up a hill, which is basically working within the limitations that Indian Health Service had. So I certainly hope that once we get a full understanding of how that has changed, that the center gets all the credit in the world for doing that, or our congressional delegation itself, because that's been a huge impediment to trying to provide sanitation to Native communities. And as we know, there are many communities out there, many homes out there without any sanitation. And yet with all that need, we still couldn't address it with the limitations that were previously. So thank you, and certainly thank the congressional delegation, Senator Murkowski in particular.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. As I mentioned, we were very excited to be able to secure that. And I will admit that it was a very exciting process, being able to help staff the senator, and she has really key committees here, being on appropriations and Indian Affairs, being both an appropriator and authorizer of programs that are really critically important to Alaska and rural Alaska. And I got to watch her negotiate some of these things, and when billions of dollars are being offered here and there, she grabbed the $3.5 billion and stepped in front of another senator who had another idea for it. And it, she was in the room when it happened. It was really cool to see. And we were able to keep it in and, craft the language after she got the number. So just a little bit of insight into how these things happen. It wasn't by accident at all. She worked really, really hard in attending those working group meetings and figuring out priorities for Native communities in Alaska, making sure that this bill would provide equitable benefits and address our unique needs. But thanks for that. Just the seeing the or just pointing out the longstanding need, and we're very happy that we're able to include that part.
Thanks, Amber. Any other questions that folks have?
Well, I guess I've got one more question, because originally when this is being discussed in the infrastructure bill, we just finished with a session talking about the inadequacy of Native housing. Is there anything you can share with us about how, if any, if the housing needs are addressed in any of this legislation? And obviously, I think there'd been some negotiations going on about that issue, I believe.
Yeah, housing was not considered a part of the hard infrastructure bill, this bipartisan bill, but I know that there is some amount for housing in the reconciliation bill. I can't remember the amount right now, but it would be an additional amount for the Indian Housing Block Grant, I think, and housing improvement program and BIA. So depending on how that reconciliation bill moves forward, I think the number is coming down on, like I said, on the top line being negotiated down. So I don't know how that's going to translate into the sub, the pieces underneath the top lines, but that's in a separate package moving. There's also the NAHASA reauthorization itself, which is not the appropriations, but the Senator and Senator Murkowski and Senator Schatz have introduced legislation to reauthorize NAHASDA. So we're also working to get that moved this Congress. Usually it's held up by separate unrelated issues, but we're working hard to get it reauthorized, at least the authorizing side, and then additional appropriations as well through the regular order of the appropriations bills, which are also moving. Hopefully we'll get some new spending bills there.
Thanks, Amber. Stephen, did you have a question?
No, more of a point. I came into this session to listen about transportation. I think there can be another time and place for all the updates, good updates we're getting. And we've already spent 40 minutes on this particular issue. So if we can get moving, thank you.
Appreciate it, Stephen. Thanks, everyone, and appreciate everybody's patience. So really unique opportunity for us to hear about dollars and negotiations that are critical to the success of the many projects we've talked about over the last couple of days and the priorities for the YK. So with that, I'm going to take Stephen's cue, and thanks again, Amber. And it sounds like you guys are going to hang out with us and maybe listen in a little bit.
Cordelia and Jerry, I'll probably
Okay.
have to hop off. But
Okay, thank you for your time, Amber. Really appreciate your hard work for Alaskans.
Thanks.
Thank you, Amber.
Okay, friends, so with that, actually, if Freddie, if you could pull up our document and our list of priorities and topics that we talked about last time. So Eric, I can hand you the baton, and I think it might be really helpful because we do have one of our priorities that we've already talked about a little bit from last year was the ice road. So ice road construction and maintenance. And so really securing funding for the Cusco ice road. And I know that Billy Connor is on with Federal Highways. Am I getting your title right, Billy? I think I probably said the wrong one. Are you with Federal Highways?
No, I'm with the University of Alaska Fairbanks.
Thank you. Sorry.
Hey, Billy.
And I just,
Hi.
I was gonna put you on the spot, Billy, mostly because I know that you've been working on ice road related exciting things. So if you wouldn't mind sharing what's happening in your universe related to ice road construction.
I would be happy to update you on what's going on. For those that don't know, Federal Highway put up about $400,000 to develop an ice road manual. And that manual is to include not only the construction of the ice road, but selection of the routing. It's to include the maintenance of that where necessary, strengthening the ice road, as well as signage and making sure that people know how to use it properly. So we have been making great progress on that. We have finished the literature search on that. So we've gone worldwide looking for information on how to do this properly. And interestingly enough, the Canadians are a bit ahead of us on this. And so we're going to rely a lot on their expertise. So that part is completed. We've Federal Highway Administration has established a expert task group that we report to, and we've briefed them on it and gotten their comments back from that. At this point in time, we're in the process of writing the manual. We're hoping to have a draft to the working group by shortly after the first year, sometime mid-January, and get their comments back on that and be able to get it to a point where we can present it to the group. Our intent has been to try to have a in-person meeting in Bethel in February. We've made all the reservations for that to happen, but we're a little bit concerned about COVID right now and bringing that many people into Bethel. So the project manager, Mitt Armstrong, and I will be having a discussion here in the not too distant future as to what's the best course of action. And we may be, we'll be contacting the folks out in Bethel to get their feelings on whether or not we should hold that workshop out there or not. I'd dearly love to hold it in February so that not only can the attendees talk amongst ourselves as to what needs to happen, but actually maybe take a short trip out on the ice road to get a feel for what's going on. And I need to spend some time with the folks, Mark Leary and his group, to understand some of the issues that they're facing. And we're planning to bring the whole team out there to get with those folks and figure out what's going on. So that part is, we fully intend to engage the communities, not only Bethel, but Tanana and some of the other communities that have ice roads in that workshop in an effort to try to get your experiences. And the manual is not as easy as you might think. There's a lot of science that goes into that, but there's also a lot of experience from the people out in the field that have to do it. And so we want to capture all of that and bring it into that manual so that it's usable by the people who are actually having to do the work on the ground. So that's where we're at the moment. We're hoping to have this thing wrapped up in about a year or so. But again, the struggle right now is trying to figure out whether or not to come to Bethel.
Thank you, Billy. I wonder if anybody has any questions for Billy about the manual that he just described, or the training and the potential opportunity for an in-person engagement in February, or some kind of a training in February. Hey, Eric, I was thinking it could be helpful just to give folks like a quick sneak peek again at what we decided on last year. And it's kind of a long list of projects. So we're just gonna run through this like really high level, to share with folks like all of the things that were here as a part of the potential task list. And then we could kind of go through them methodically. Does that sound okay to you?
Yep, that sounds great.
Okay. So we had, folks, if you can see the screen okay, what we had definitely talked about, the ice road as a key factor. We also talked about incorporating ice roads, as I mentioned when Amber was sharing the infrastructure briefing. Ice roads as a part of the inventory, as part of tribal transportation plans, as part of those inventories. So really advocating for that. If you keep cruising down the list here, Freddie, we can do a quick swoop of everything that was included last year. There was a big focus on winter trails, as I mentioned, including really trail markers. So really clearly identifying and getting clear the as part of a safety measure. So we did have Bethel Search and Rescue on last year to help really think about that question. And more about trails, you can see a couple of items here, D, E, F, and G. If you can keep cruising down, please, Freddie. Those items that were identified as like priority actions or tasks related to trails. So mostly, of course, focused on winter trails and trail marking and emergency shelters and those things that could facilitate safe travel, as Eric was mentioning, safe travel in YK communities. And then if you keep going down, please, Freddie, the other items that were identified were projects that have come up, and also I should mention an emergency response center in Bethel, but the other items here are really, I should say, items J through N are really items that have been identified through working with the city of Bethel and through previous conversations that YK Partners have had, and YK Partners developed a list of priority infrastructure projects, and these projects were identified earlier on. So I just wanted to give everybody a little bit of context, and then we can certainly come back to the ice road topic and make sure that we address any other questions or concerns related to that. So if you scroll back to the top for us, Freddie. I was just curious because when we talked about the ice road topic last year, Mark is not on, by the way, because he emailed me yesterday and said they were pulling out their barge yesterday. So he's busy doing stuff in the Piemute, but otherwise Mark would be probably on and sharing some additional details with us. But we did have, I know we have some DOT partners on today, and also Chalista and Donlin partners. And I know have been some historic contributions to maintenance of the ice road. So I was just curious, maybe Judy or someone else from DOT can speak to whether or not that support has continued, or maybe someone else from the region knows.
Yeah, sure. This is Judy Chapman. Yeah, I know that we were able to contribute some state funding for the Kuskokwim Ice Road maintenance last year. And we were able to do that from Northern Region's maintenance budget, as I recollect. So we do support ice roads. We have several of them that you had mentioned, one in Kayana, one in Tanana, throughout the region. They're really important for getting folks around in the wintertime. We also have one out of Bettles also that gets put in every year, and some on the North Slope. I'm not sure about the status of that funding, but I know that our commissioner recognizes the need and really supports the need for ice road maintenance. And then we also do have a winter trail program that we've got through FHWA Title 23. And we are able to have villages and communities that are interested get FHWA funds for staking winter trails and maintaining a safety of a trail system in their areas. And so we've got several years of trail funding sort of spoken for, but we're always taking new applications in. And if I can be efficient and find the link to that website for winter trails, I will put that in the chat here in a minute. I guess I'll have to check on the actual status of the maintenance funding this year, though, for the Bethel Kuskokwim Ice Road. We have some deadlines coming up with the putting in the governor's budget, and hopefully we can get something in there.
Great,
Shelley?
thanks. Yeah, go for it, Eric.
For the winter trails for the whole region as a whole, if we go back to the top of the, well, more relating to the ice road, we service 9 communities here under AVCP transportation, but we'd like to hold, we haven't held a symposium this past year due to COVID and everything that was associated with that. But in our next plan for the next symposium, which will be more than likely in March or May, we'd like to put this back on the agenda to have more discussions with everyone in the region about, what their input would like to be as far as the ice road. So it's a very interesting topic. There's many different opinions and views of how this should be done or how funding should be split up. But yeah, we're planning on having a symposium in March, more than likely March. And this is one of the top topics that we'll be discussing is the ice road and what we can do to, utilize that. And Mark will have he did a great presentation during the last symposium about the ice road and how it started and all the key pieces. And he did a great job of explaining to some of the folks that weren't really in the know about how this works. Gave us some details, and he was very helpful. I'm really sad that he's not here today, but yeah, like Shelley said, he's getting his boat pulled up. He's actually parked in front of my favorite fishing spot, so I need to get his boat out of the water. But yeah,
Okay.
I think it would be a great time to discuss this would be during our annual TTP symposium here in Bethel, and we're not sure if it's going to be in person or split up into with what's going on, but we'll certainly have Mark as one of our speakers, and he can do a lot of explaining to how this whole process works. He's really the expert in ice roads. He's an amazing person that does all this work out here. There's been so many times where we've reached out to Mark and he just gives us this information, and he's so helpful. He's free. This information is free. He's very easy to talk to. So if you guys would like to reach out to him, I'm sure he'd be more than happy to talk to you as well. But that's what we have on the books now. We'd like to put this on the agenda for March and discuss more about the ice road with the whole community and get their input.
Great. So Freddie, I think that whole slice goes up to the ice road. And that's what I was hearing you say, Eric, and which is awesome. I think it sounds like you probably talk about trails too, but you were saying especially related to the ice road. And then I see your hand, Jonathan, and just one more quick thing is that it seems like there's kind of this opportunity with what Billy was talking about with the ice road manual and then the March symposium that you're already planning to do. Maybe those are kind of combined or one and the same types of opportunities. So that seems like a real potential way to collaborate. Jonathan, I'm sorry for taking so long. Please, what's on your mind?
No problem. Thank you, Shelley. I'm excited to hear about this symposium that is tentatively scheduled for March. I hope that we'll be invited to that, Eric. For anyone I haven't met yet, my name is Jonathan Samuelson. I work for the Kuskokwim Corporation. We're the village corporation for 10 villages in the middle Kuskokwim, which is part of the larger region. Lower Calskag up to Stony River. I just wanted to touch base because we do work with Napaimid on the ice road. They are one of our tribes. We've donated for the last several years to that effort. I think we've gone up to $20,000 in a year. And then for the last 2 winters, we implemented our own trail marking program, which we sort of split that donation funding now between the ice road and the trail marking because they go hand in hand. And it really creates jobs for the region. You know, everyone's familiar, but the crew at Napaimid really takes the lead, but they work with all the local tribes or cities, whoever has the equipment in the village. They hire people they employ people from all the different communities up and down the river and give them that chance at learning and getting on the job training, but also, you know, that employment and that income for the long winter months, which is really helpful. So I just wanted to point that out and look for more ways that we can collaborate. Like I said, I'm looking forward to this symposium in March, and I'll be looking for more info on that. But I also just want to stress the importance of trail marking and ice road, because when we don't have those, we lose people. And what's really important for us, you know, further away from Bethel is a lot of our airports aren't equipped with runway lights. We can't have medevacs come in a lot of the times when it's dark at any time of the year. So the ice road provides that route for emergency medical transportation and other emergencies. We transport goods, we transport heating, fuel, and timber, all sorts of things. The opportunities are endless once that road's in place. So that's all. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Jonathan. I see your hand, Billy. Go for it.
Sure. I just want to let you know that we're working with the folks out in Nome Quarrick on some trail improvement and applying new technologies to that. Sean McKnight has developed a trail marker that's working with 3M company that may be of use to you. We're also looking at sheds. And a new technology that's coming along is the addition of remote weather information systems that we can put on the trail as long as we have some kind of communication, complete with cameras so that you can see what the trail conditions are out there, and hopefully folks can move about the trails with a little bit more information about the conditions of those trails. So we'd be happy to work with you folks and collaborate so that we can get your expertise and knowledge and desires and needs as we move along on this project. You know, as I say, I'm more than happy to share what we've got, where we are, and get your feedback on what we're doing.
Great. Thanks, Billy. And I was just seeing Judy's comment. Thanks, Judy, for your comment about getting DOT can get some emergency runway lights for medevacs. If your runway is unlit, you just need to put them out during medevacs. Thank you. And I just want to make sure I was not missing anybody's hand. I see a couple of folks are unmuted if they wanted to share anything.
Stephen,
Yeah, go ahead,
Alexis
Stephen.
here. Yeah, Donald Gold, I believe we've contributed to Napaimid for this ice road project. It's critical for our villages, as Jonathan mentioned. And I believe a couple of years ago was the first time ever in the history they were able to plow all the way to Slit Mute to provide the critical services needed. Every winter, the ice becomes our highway. As in Anchorage has their highways. And Eric was mentioning earlier about the importance of these trails that were established generations and used by dog sleds to travel from one place to another. And he is right. The majority of the elders and leaders do not want them, bothered or touched, except for maintained for these purposes of going to a hunt towards Yukon River. And I'm kind of interested in hearing to see if there are any updates on the regional corridor that's been discussed for the last 10 years, I believe. Where are we at with that? And I believe it'll provide critical and necessary equipment, not just equipment. It may lower our, consumer needs here if that's established. So thanks.
Thank you, Stephen. And I think the contributions, and actually I think it's an item A and not an item B related to the contributions that Donlin has made to funding and helping to support the ice road. So thanks for that reminder, Stephen. And then I think you just asked, and you're, I think, reiterating just the need and the importance of the ice roads in general. But if we can, once you get there, Freddie, if we could cruise down to the, and if you can remind me, Stephen, so we've got the freight corridor listed down below. So maybe we can cruise down to that section. Jonathan, your hand is still up. I just want to make sure I'm not ignoring you.
No, I just probably don't know how to put it down.
Okay. I can help. There we go. No worries. Okay. So I think, am I right, Stephen? And what I see here is item J that was in the CEDS, that's been part of the CEDS for a number of years, is develop the YK freight corridor. Is that what you're talking about? Just to make sure we're all operating from the same page?
Yes, I believe when I was working at the Napaskak, native village of Napaskak as a tribal transportation director, it's been nearly maybe 7 years now.
Yeah.
They were discussing, I know ABCT and Clarence Daniel was looking into developing that regional freight corridor between, I believe, Russian Mission and Kalskag, if I'm not mistaken. But they had some issues with the land, our role for the land with the Yukon Delta National Wildlife Refuge.
And so I would call on other folks that are more familiar. Does anybody have any relevant updates related to this project?
Hey, Shelley.
Yeah, go for it, Eric.
Yeah, it's been a little while since we've discussed the corridor, but we did have a meeting with some of the tribes from the Yukon side in Anchorage during the last BA Providers Conference I was able to attend, and there was mixed feelings about the corridor from their end. Like me and Stephen mentioned, not just elders but ourselves don't want certain trails disturbed. Those are there's areas that have been stood the test of time and their use, and they want to keep them that way. And it was the same sentiment from some of the tribes that they didn't want their traditional hunting areas or picking places where they pick berries disturbed because potential dust kick up and things of that nature. So we had a really good discussion. I believe Billy might have been there, and we had a talk with Russian Mission, and we got some mixed answers. It was very interesting to see the differences in opinions of the corridor. There was some tribes that absolutely wanted it. Some individuals were very, very supportive of it, and others had their reservations. And that was the point of our conversation, to get all the mixed answers and try to figure out a solution. And like I said, marry some of those opinions together and try to come up with something feasible. But I know Clarence Daniel did put a lot of work into the freight corridor. It took up quite a bit of his time when I first started here. Unfortunately, he's unable to join us and give us some input, but it was very interesting to hear the different opinions about what people wanted as far as the route. And the route wasn't finalized. There was different routes that we could potentially take. But Billy, were you part of that meeting? It's been some time. I need a refresher.
No, I was not a part of that meeting. I am aware of that effort. But I think the big issue keeping you from moving forward right now, and last time I talked to Clarence, was really coming up with some consensus as to what you want. And I think that's going to be the biggest challenge for you.
So I might have a little
Yeah.
bit,
Yeah,
I just have a little bit more information on this one. If I can just steal the screen from you for a second, Freddie, I'm gonna grab it because, and this is just a reminder to all of us that, and Stephen, and I know you can't see this right now, so I'm gonna kind of torture everybody else and maybe read it out loud for a moment. Only because this is what was published in the 2020 Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy update. So that was in May of last year. The information we had at that time was still, this would be a priority regional transportation project connecting communities along the Yukon and Cusco via a 44-mile overland route. And the stage 3 technical report was released in April 2019. The next step was stage 4 for the corridor plan. But maybe that goes back to, and then we had some funding opportunities that we thought might be good fits for this project. However, things have clearly, that's changed a lot with new funding opportunities available to us. But maybe worth revisiting with new funding availabilities. And then I'm hearing Eric loud and clear that there might be still some concerns about the exact route and other details that would need to be identified. So I'm just curious if there's anybody else on that has any additional information on the corridor project that would be helpful for the rest of us to hear and to answer Stephen's question maybe on status. And by the way, Clarence is not here because he's facilitating another meeting right now. He's facilitating the business development meeting at the same time. Anyone else information on the corridor project?
Looks like hearing Shelley from you directly saying that there might be a preliminary engineering reports already done for this project. We just need to get the final road to move on and try to get some funding to move, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think, complete stage 4 of the corridor plan. And so understanding better what that means. And so I think, there's a charge this stays in. I definitely hear some interest that this stays in the action plan or the tasks, and that we need to better understand like what that next step is. And I know that Clarence has likely some additional information that could inform us. But yeah, Stephen, thanks for that question.
Yeah, so it would be important to keep it as an indicator before the next meeting. Thanks.
Thank you, Stephen.
Shelley, I'd like to put this on the table as well for our symposium. I know there's a lot of lingering questions, and I'd hate to leave it at that. If we can further discuss this with the entire region during our symposium, that would be a great opportunity for folks like Stephen and myself to engage in conversations and discuss this further.
Great, thanks, Eric. Yeah, so maybe if folks don't have any other questions or comments related to the corridor project, I just wanted to mention that we did have a section in previous years that are just sort of funding opportunities. And I'll just mention that in the chat, Jocelyn from the Denali Commission, she had to jump off, but she mentioned that there's competitive funding opportunity in January for FY22 transportation projects. Funding is expected to be between 1 to 13 million and cover planning, design, and construction. So that's something that we could certainly track or should continue to track as we look at this plus infrastructure package. A lot of opportunities to probably braid funding together to make many of these infrastructure projects a reality. Stephen, since you were had the microphone for a moment, were there other projects on your list or mine that you wanted to make sure that we touched on today?
No, just kind of excited to see the final outcome of the book that Billy is establishing or making. As you know, there are times I vision and dream that there could be a, you know, we watch Discovery and we watch those Canadians establish ice roads to their villages, you know, to have their cheaper supplies during the winter. And if that could be done there, I believe we can do the same from Fairbanks to McGrath and on down, and even to the Yukon rivers, you know, as there's a road to Tanana too.
Thank you, Stephen. So I think the next projects we've skipped around a little bit, but we definitely talked about the ice road. And I just wanted to come back to trails and actually I was just curious if what trail marking, Eric, if you have any updates, because I know that you're focused on you know, safety and trail marking, and that's a part of the work that you do. Anything that's happened or updates that you could share with us about what trail marking has happened?
You know, the trail marking aspect usually is covered by the search and rescue teams out in the communities or by the
Okay.
tribe.
Yep.
But the winter trails in itself, we've been working heavily with, we just hired a planner that's working on getting all the rows in the land acquired for a winter trail that's going to go from Platinum all the way to Nunamiko. It's going to continue on through you know, connecting all the villages that are part of our consortium, and all the villages that are in between are going to be really benefiting from that. We're working on splitting up the maintenance between the villages because I know Pitka's Point has something like 300 miles of that trail. So we're going to have to figure out a solution to where they can share that maintenance of that route, because Pitka's is a small community. They're a great community, but they're just not large enough to, it's not adequate for the size of that tribe to maintain a route that's 300 miles long. So we're trying to figure out how we can split up that, block that up in between other tribes, and you know, that'll have to be a discussion again during the symposium. We'd like to get a lot more input, but you know, that's the roadblocks we're encountering right now as far as the route is, who's going to maintain which portion of the route. But you know, we've been heavily working on trying to acquire land right now. Our planners contacting corporations, tribal leaders to get everybody to try to correlate and get on the same page. But you know, this project is coming to fruition. We're going to be you know, getting our design and plan is 99.9% complete. We just have to submit it for finals, and you know, this is a project that's going to happen. You know, it's going to be a huge project. It's going to instill like 1 million poles. There's going to be places for you to rest. There's going to be you know, signs. There's going to be elevation sign changes. Another thing that we need to discuss during the symposium is going to be color coding. You know, we have to get everybody on the same page because everybody uses different color codes right now. Some communities use blue on land. But for me out here near the river, blue means danger, water. The Kuskokwim usually marks blue. So if you're from the interior villages on the tundra and you see blue markers, you're going to think, oh, there's the trail. And you're going to potentially head yourself into dangerous territory, driving over an open hole or some, newly frozen hole. So the color coding aspect of this is going to be really important. It might not sound like it when you have these different regions that use blue for land and we use blue for water. That has to be addressed before we can move forward. But these are the things that we're taking care of right now. And we have Ashley Johnson. She started here a few months ago, but she's been moving this program pretty heavily. So some of you guys might be hearing from Ashley. She'll be introduced to everyone during the symposiums and during conferences. But unfortunately, she's actually on leave today, so I'm not able to introduce her. But we've been moving forward with the winter trail. We've been having meetings with corporations and discussing this, setting out letters. So you'll start hearing a lot of inklings about this project that's about to happen, and we'll have materials on the ground next season or the season after, the poles and all the equipment related to that. But the biggest portion of this, once it's completed, is going to be the maintenance. This is a huge undertaking for some of the smaller tribes. Pitkas Point, like I used as an example, has 300 miles to maintain, so they're going to need help. And we're finding solutions to address those type of situations. But we're really excited about this Winter Trails project. We call it the FLAP project, and it's going to connect Platinum all the way to Nunam, and it's going to make travel safer. We always hear stories about people getting lost, and oh, I found a trail marker here and it saved my life, but I barely saw it. It's so small, and I just saw the very tip of the reflecting light above the snow. But these are going to be like 10-foot tall tripods. You can't miss them. They're not going to get overblown. So it will increase safety just for that fact. But we're very excited about this program, this project, and we're really looking forward to hearing everybody's input.
Yeah, I'm not sure how many folks have heard about this so far, Eric, and maybe a lot, but this is fantastic. So was I understanding correctly? So you shared a lot of details, and we might have to go back and make sure we get those all covered. So you said platinum to Nunam is what I heard, and over 300 miles.
The route's going to start in Platinum.
Yeah.
Oh no, Pitkas Point is responsible just by themselves for over 300 miles. This route.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, the route is actually
from Platinum all the way to Nunam. Just so that small portion is 300 miles, and that's Pitkas Point's portion alone. So we're trying to figure out how to alleviate the stress of them maintaining that 300-mile stretch, because one community with the search and rescue team tried to maintain this 300-mile stretch would be a huge undertaking, because each community has search and rescue, but we don't want to take up all their time maintaining a route. So we're trying to spread out the work and the dollars so we can have a well-maintained winter trails route.
Okay, great. So Platinum to Nunam, and that's awesome. I heard you say like over 1 million poles. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So just staging these markers are going to be a huge undertaking in itself. Our yard is huge. We have a huge yard, but 1 million poles will take up a good portion of it. So we're planning on placing poles in different locations, and just trying to ensure that we have space for our other tribes projects and programs, because there are other things that we're working on, such as road building and board road building, road maintenance, board road maintenance, and all of that requires dump trucks, loaders, lots of heavy equipment, and most of the time all that equipment takes up all the room at the yard. But with this huge order coming, we're trying to get creative to figure out where we're going to place these things, but we'll find a solution. We have plenty of time to plan for all this, and we do have some ideas in mind that we plan to utilize.
Okay, and then I just
1 million
saw in the
poles.
chat. Yeah, go for it.
Oh no, I just said, but yeah, 1 million poles.
1 million poles.
Over
Okay.
1 million poles.
Okay, and I just saw Billy mention in the chat that you guys should get together and share notes. And it seems like there's some collaboration opportunities. And I'm really want other folks to weigh in here if they have questions about, this is like, I had not anticipated, and actually did not know about this project, Eric. So it's really cool to hear the details. Other folks that have questions.
I do. I imagine the road from where Platinum will have safe houses, right?
Yes, that's in our design and planning. Something like every 20 miles, they're supposed to be developing a little log cabins with the wood stove. I had to ensure that that was correct information, because that is in our design and plan is the safety shacks. We're calling them the safety shacks. And those in themselves take a lot of planning and time. We want to ensure that they're safe, and we're trying to come up with solutions to, you know, we can build these. The main thing we're concerned about is vandalism. You know, I've traveled to Queen Hawk many times, and we've lost that safety shack in between Eek and Queen Hawk numerous times to fire and vandalism. So maintenance of these routes is going to be really important, especially for those, we call them safety shacks, but it's basically a tiny log cabin with a wood stove inside of it.
Yeah, go ahead, Stephen, sorry.
No, I was just going to say, sounds exciting.
It does. The safety shacks or shelters, I think we were calling them, there's a subtask in this list of tasks, and you don't have to scroll down there now, Freddie, but what you're talking about, Eric, really incorporates all of the tasks that a lot of the tasks like related to that are in this big project that you're describing. I'm just curious, how is it being funded?
The Winter Trails program is funded through federal highways. We were lacking a planner, and we couldn't move forward as quickly as we wanted to, so we had to request for an extension. We got an extension to July 1, 2022, so we can continue getting you know, the right of ways acquired. But yeah, it's been a heavy task for us here. We've been working on it very heavily. Our planner basically spends, you know, from the morning till she leaves working on acquiring the land and trying to get everything in order so we can get this project moving forward.
Is there any assistance that you need from the folks that are gathered here today that would be helpful, or just curious?
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. Our planner, Ashley, she contacts corporations and tribes, and if we can just get information out there that this is happening, that we can get discussions going, that you know, it's an exciting project. It's something that it will not potentially save lives, it will save lives, because we've encountered so many times where people just succumb to the weather because there's no place for them to get into, or they don't know how to get out of the climate. You know, the kids nowadays, they don't know how to dig a hole in the ground, like maybe how me and Stephen were taught when we were younger. These were things that were taught in school. They actually taught you out and let you dig a hole in the ground and experience what you need to do to survive. And things are different now, so you know, unfortunately, maybe those programs aren't happening anymore, but you know, this will address that concern.
Awesome. And so, Eric, I think what would be helpful, I was thinking if you had a like a 1-page or 2-page or something that describes, or even longer, that describes the project that we could share with everybody that's on, not just folks that are gathered here today, but other participants. Do you have something like that you could share that describes it, so we have more of that detail?
I do, but well, actually I don't. It's with Ashley, and she's out of the office now, unfortunately. So she's been one.
Oh, that's okay. Not today, but
the
as a follow-up.
Oh yeah, most certainly.
Okay.
As soon as she gets back, I could have her develop a little report and explain what's been done, what we still need to do, and what we would like to get help with. That's a great idea, Shelley. So I have her reach out to not just our consortium tribes, but the tribes in between. And you know, this is going to be a route that's used by potentially everyone, not just the routes in between the villages, people would come from different villages to take the shot because it would be safer. You know, I
Mhm.
myself didn't learn how to get to the Yukon until I was an adult, and I would never be comfortable going up there by myself. But now with this Winter Trails project, it's going to be like, I'm not going to say it's going to be like a highway, but it will be marked, and it'll describe how many miles away a village is, where the next shelter's at, elevation changes, if there's a lake in front of you. These will be placed on signs, and you know, from my experience, and I've been lost before out there, and it's a horrible feeling. Um, and you know, that's what we're trying to work uh, to address, is to try to get people home safely. And with the snow machines and with the technology, these things are able to go places that you couldn't even imagine. You know, people feel confident and they take off on these you know, really high-tech pieces of equipment. These pieces of equipment get them to places faster than they realize, and they get lost.
Mhm.
But these routes that we're trying to develop and will be marking will alleviate those stresses on people, because getting lost
Mhm.
is a horrible feeling. It's a horrible, horrible feeling, especially if you're having to deal with the weather as well. So that's where I'm really happy that we're developing the shelters as well.
Thanks, Eric. I wonder if we can cruise down to other tasks. So I know we've covered, you know, predominantly on our surface transportation projects. And we don't have anyone from Bethel Search and Rescue on with us today. And there's been this idea of establishing a Western Alaska Emergency Response Center. And I'm not sure if anybody on the call today is able to talk about the status or if any progress has been made on that. It certainly sounded like a high priority when we talked over a year ago. But we can definitely, we did do that outreach to those folks, but they're busy and unable to make it today. We have talked about the corridor project. And maybe I'll just press pause here if folks have like immediate questions for the
Shelley?
rest of the group. Yeah, go for it, Eric.
Sorry, I don't want to interrupt again, but I am part of the Bethel Search and Rescue group.
Oh,
I haven't
good.
been to a few meetings in a while, just because of my schedule, and I've been busy. But the group, when I did talk to some of the leaders there, I'm you know, I'm associates with Charles Guest. He's one of the leaders there. You know, this is something that's sorely needed in our region. Um, not just for transportation, but for other things. You know, we're dealing with COVID-19 now, and something like this could potentially be used to address situations, you know, maybe a place for people to quarantine if needed. You know, in the beginning of this whole process, people were wondering where we could put people if we overloaded the hospitals, and they were going to put people in the gyms of the school and things like that. And now people are too comfortable having you know, your child's school being used as a quarantine center. So this was another discussion that I had with him, aside from a meeting, that the official search and rescue meeting. You know, things like that. We were just sharing ideas, but I just thought that, you know, a response center is just sorely needed out here, since we're really in the middle of to get the state troopers and the National Guard to come and work with the state, not the state, but the search and rescue guys. You know, you hear a lot of complaints that there's some type of lack of communication, and you know, if we could establish a response center, you know, that could be manned by maybe the search and rescue teams and things like that. We discussed that in some detail, but you know, there needs to be a way for people to get help when they need it. And
Mhm.
you know, I know that the troopers and the National Guard are a great resource, but at the end of the day, it's the local search and rescue teams on the ground that usually find the people, whether they're, you know, alive or unfortunately deceased. So I was trying to figure out a way to provide as much assistance as I can to the search and rescue groups out here, because they do most of their work with their own equipment, their own materials, their own gas. A bunch of guys that got together and decided that, you know, we need to do this and we need to help each other. There is some funding for fuel, and they do have one or two you know, they do have one or two snow machines, and they have a small little 16-foot boat. So they do need assistance in things like purchasing equipment, not just Bethel, but every other village. But you know, the search and rescue teams need support, and something like this would offer support to them. And you know, I keep bringing up the symposium, but there's going to be a section there where we're going to invite one member of search and rescue from every of our community consortium villages to come
Oh, wow.
and do it and start that conversation.
Okay, thanks, Eric. Appreciate that update. And I know it's so, you know, keeping that in here as a continued priority, but trying to make some progress on it, which it sounds like maybe that some of that could happen with a gathering, but also like starting to think about the right funding for making that a reality. With your permission, everyone, I think maybe we transition down a little bit further on the task list. And then I also, again, just wanted to make sure that folks who had any comments, especially
Yeah,
for things that may
Stephen,
not be.
Alexei,
Yeah, go ahead, Stephen.
before you move on, I think by opening this response center will also open up opportunities to, you know, find additional funding where Bethel Search and Rescue is always relying on donated stuff, which is good. And they haven't been able to host fundraisers for the past 2 years due to COVID. So this could possibly open up revenue sources if that's established. And, you know, that's just my point.
Yeah, that's a great point. Thanks, Stephen. So I think that a couple of other things that I just wanted to make sure we touch on them. And we've kind of, we did talk about the freight corridor. So the others that were listed here that again are actually still, they're part of the CEDS and part of the 2020 update. And I'm just looking at the regional port topic right now. And so for anyone, I'm curious if we have anybody on that can share any related updates or progress that's happened on this project. I know that there was some progress made when we did the 2020 CEDS, but not sure where we're standing today. So I'll just throw that out there first to see if there's anyone else that has an update related to the Lower Yukon River Regional Port in Emonic. Okay, definitely last year, and it sounds like it's kind of happening today too, that our priorities were really surface transportation related. But if folks would like some additional information, at least the status as of May 2020 in the CEDS, the annual update from May on page 33, there's a write-up on that related to what funding had been secured and the progress made on that at that point. So if not any comments there are a few others projects that are listed here. One is develop a gravel pit at Pilcher Mountain. And then we have Bethel kind of port, cargo dock, city dock related projects. I don't think we have anybody with the city of Bethel on today. So likely we need to get input directly from city management, city planners to see where we're at, unless folks here on the call have any input. I would be curious, the gravel pit at Pilcher Mountain came up when we did the 2018 to 2023 CEDS. And, you know, that as with a road and port for exporting the gravel. So as an economic development project, that's also a transportation related project and materials for doing other road construction and projects elsewhere. Is there anyone that's on with us today that can share any feedback on the Pilcher Mountain project?
Hey, Shelley, this is Christina with Donlin Gold, and just appreciate the conversation so far. I know Stephen and Rebecca, and I think Samantha are also on from Donlin, and so I think they've covered the Donlin stuff pretty well, but a couple years ago, we wrote a letter of support for the Pilcher Mountain project. at the request of the local tribe. And I believe Chalista was working on it as well. I don't know where it sits right now. I think that was in a couple years ago funding for the transportation bill. So I didn't see anyone from Chalista on the call, but maybe I'm mistaken. They're calling in.
Mhm. Tisha was on a little bit earlier, but it looks like she jumped off. Do we have anybody else from Chalista on still? I'm cruising down the list and I don't see anyone. Thanks, Christina. So I think it's worth doing a follow-up with Tisha or whoever part of the team on the status of this project.
Yeah, and I can spearhead that, Shelley. Happy to.
That would be awesome. Yeah.
Great. Thanks.
Shelley, I have a question for Christina.
Yeah, hi.
Hi, Christina. This is Eric. I'm just curious. I'm kind of out of the know, and I'm really curious about this project. I love it when tribes start developing their own business plans and export gravel and it's great to see that. But I'm just curious which tribes are spearheading this.
You are testing my memory here, and I cannot remember. I'm going to have to go back and look at our letter that we wrote a couple years ago. So I'm sorry. I'm going to need to go back in and look for that. This was not on my list of things to bring to talk about today.
Yeah.
But I will get back to you on that, Eric.
Okay. Yeah, I'll send you my email, and it would be great to know a little bit more about it because I'm in full support of local tribes trying to get business generated, and gravel is a great way to utilize that.
Yeah, and I know a project, that could be happening in a couple years, a few years that could use a lot of gravel. So.
Yes. And so related to that, I think, Eric, both of you guys have brought up a really great point. I think a little bit more robust descriptions of the projects, I think, could benefit in our action plan here. So we did have that, I think, in the I'm going back to the 2018-23 version now, just to see if I'm not lying about how much detail we included, which was pretty high level, even in the CEDS itself, I think. But I think getting some additional, I have other partners from the 2018 and 2023 CEDS, which was the 5-year document, partners, lead entity. So Judy, this may come as a surprise for you, but we did have DOT as a partner for this Pilcher Mountain project. Does that sound familiar to you at all?
It doesn't to me, but I think that might be in our central region political boundaries. So that's probably why. And my region is, it includes a piece of the YK, but more the lower Yukon end, and then north all the way up, and then, over to the Canadian border and down to Valdez and Cordova. So it's that's probably why. I can check with my counterparts in central region and find out if they're working on this at all.
Okay. The other partners that were listed, so I saw Freddie's note in the chat, but the other partners that we had listed were City of Marshall, Chalista.
Oh, I'm sorry, it's Marshall. Yeah, yes, I am familiar with Marshall. I was thinking we were talking lower YK for Pilcher Mountain. I'm not familiar with it under that name, but yeah, we do have a project in the airport improvement program for Marshall Airport, and we are sort of hoping that provides the opportunity for Chalista to develop that pit at that point, because we recognize that would be a huge benefit to projects up and down the Yukon River. So that's, I don't know, Jennifer Keller is on the line. I can't remember when that is scheduled. I think it's in 2023. That project happens, and it'll have some pretty significant material needs. But that's all I know. I don't know if Chalista is doing any additional exploration or anything right now. But yeah, hopefully they've got that in their sights that this airport project will be happening, and we'll need a significant quantity of material for it.
Yeah. So yeah, what I heard you saying was that there was a City of Marshall Airport or a Marshall Airport Improvement Project.
Yes.
And that is what that means for slated for potentially 2023. What that means is the opportunity to tap that resource at Pilcher Mountain. Wow, great.
Yeah.
Local product.
And your recap there just prompted, it's so amazing what you just don't remember in life, but it feels like 100 years ago. So we actually went to DC with the city of Marshall and the Marshall tribe and met with Congressman Young. Went with the full delegation. Chalista went, we went. We brought the folks from Marshall with us, and we had some great meetings. I know leadership has transitioned since then, but you are correct. It was Marshall.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so that's deep in the it's actually not that deep back, and I should put that link in here for everyone because we do have the 2020 update for the CEDS, but it is an update to this longer version, the 5-year document. And I just really want to emphasize like how much information is in that document, which is still relevant because it goes through 2023, and the update really is kind of a little refresher piece. I'm throwing the link to that longer document into the chat for your reference, everybody. And in your spare time, you can check this out, which has a lot of detail and really, but it's great, Judy. Thank you. And Christina, thanks for the update and the prompt. And really it was prompted by Eric kind of poking a little bit further on that question. So
yeah, and I'll just throw in, we did confirm that one is scheduled for 2023. So we do, the contractor gets to determine where they want to get their material, but so there may be some negotiations with Chalista that would have to happen to open up that pit. But I think everyone knows that's just such a critical and great pit that it would definitely help infrastructure in interior and Western Alaska.
Great. Thanks, Judy. Okay, so I believe, with the exception of the Bethel projects, unless someone has an additional update, that we've gotten down to the bottom of our task list that we had developed back in August. So I wonder, just opening the floor to others, are there key transportation projects that you are aware of that you've not heard identified as potential items or tasks that should be on the radar of all partners working on YK related priorities? Are we missing anything?
Shelley?
Yeah, go for it, Eric.
Project we're working on doesn't really involve the entire region, but does involve this area. It would connect somewhat the Pascagoula to Bethel in somewhat of a safer mode. It's really developed a route for folks to get from Oscarville to Bethel. We're working on a project right now. We've finished the Oscarville side. The next portion is going to be from Bethel to Oscarville, and then we're going to be developing a bridge to connect Oscarville to Bethel. This could potentially make travel from the Pascagoula and Oscarville safer to Bethel, but the intention of it is, there's no airport there. And we have a community there that's landlocked during freeze up and breakup. So it's really, really a dangerous situation to be in if you get hurt, or, there was a lady who was pregnant who needed a helicopter to come and pick her up because she didn't get out soon enough before the last month of her trimester. So it's a small community, and we'll say they don't develop a lot, they don't generate a lot, but it's needed. It's a safety issue. So this somewhat will be potentially used by, it could be used by everybody in Bethel, thanks to Oscarville, but it'll connect Oscarville to Bethel. There'll be a road over this, a bridge over the slough. But I know it's not region wide, but it does connect different communities to Bethel. And this is the first project of its kind. We've never developed a project where a board road connects a community with gravel roads to Bethel and the bridge. But like I had mentioned before, we're in the wild west stages of development and infrastructure. We're still walking on trails and you know, when we get to the point where we can see these things coming to fruition, I know there's some pushback, but when they come to fruition, people get on them and they walk on them and they say, wow, you know, this makes travel safer. I can get from here to there without worrying about crossing the river and falling in and potentially drowning. I have a safe route to the hospital. I can get a job in Bethel. I can get a job in Oscarville, either or. But you know, that's the great use of transportation, is to create accessibility to a better means of living.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks for sharing that, Eric. Maybe additional calls for any other projects, because I think we're closing in on our time where we have a chance for closing comments or questions. And I know we did not get to the indicator discussion, but definitely have heard folks in other working groups on other topics talk about potentially reconvening in December or even January to really come back together and do a deeper dive on some of these topics, especially after we bring all the notes together. So I think many of you have emailed me and asked me, you know, how can I get the recordings or the notes? And we'll make those available to everyone within the next 2 weeks, because we'll need a little bit of time to download all the recordings, make sure that those are in good shape to share with everyone. And then also the notes related to that, which are things you've been seeing here live, but I think some additional details that's hard to capture when we're moving so fast. So maybe, Eric, if it's okay with you, I think we should just start to do a call for final comments or questions as we wrap up this really awesome discussion. And so maybe we'll start. I'm just curious for maybe folks that we haven't heard from. I know, Bob, you were had a lot of time with the housing and water sewer infrastructure folks. Anything that you would like to share? Any comments or questions related to transportation?
No, I was really just listening in, just to absorb how it might help in our efforts for housing. We're always looking for ways to maybe leverage some transportation dollars to housing instead of having the housing project burden the expense of the road or the boardwalk going into a subdivision.
Thanks, Bob. Bessie, if you can hear me okay, I just wanted to make sure you had a chance to share. If there's anything on your mind.
Shelley, I have to read what Bob just said. There needs to be a partnership between transportation and housing. And you know, when we developed a road in the Napakiak, I'm from the housing field, so I made sure the access routes to the lots they look beautiful. But I made sure that I said, you know, make sure that the access routes to these housing lots are very accessible, and they just did a great job. But in the past, when the Mutual Help and Occupancy Agreement program was the main program utilized, there were requirements for housing, water and sewer, the city, the corp, the tribe, everybody to come into agreement before any type of groundbreaking was done. Now everybody does their own thing somewhat. You know, housing will build a house, we'll build a road, and then there's just not that communication as heavy as it needs to be, and we need to start that up again. There needs to be partnerships between us and housing and the cities and the corporations, because we're all working to the same goal, is to make everybody's lives easier with modes of transportation, how you get there, and places where you live. And based on our conversations, the two main things that people want out in the communities are roads and houses and water and sewer. And it's always been like that. And it's going to be an uphill battle to try to get all those three things, but we're working on it. We're working heavily and we're fighting the battles that we need to fight. And you know, sometimes it's a difficult one, but we're getting there.
Thanks, Eric. Other folks that have final comments or questions?
Yeah, Stephen Alexi here. I think it would be important to reconvene just as those other sessions because we haven't even gone through some of these discussion topics. So, it's always a challenge for our region transportation-wise. So, the more we discuss it, the better pavement will pave for our future generation. So if we can set up a meeting, that would be great.
Awesome. Thanks, Stephen. Yeah, we did follow-up meetings, and I know Mike and Bob were part of those in December of last year. After we did an August discussion and then a December discussion, and it was really successful and helpful to do December. And even though it was busy, it was like a week before Christmas. Everybody jumped on, and it was really great and deep discussion because I think, like you said, Stephen, everybody is really just wanting to keep the conversation going, and progress is made by having the discussion, and a lot of points that we shared today that folks were, education that some folks were unaware of. Thanks, Stephen. Other comments or questions?
And Shelley, I just got a question real quick. Eric mentioned a term or some kind of terminology to kind of group that thought process of coordination between all the groups. I thought I heard something. Could he elaborate on that a little bit?
Oh yeah, that's a program that's no longer in existence. It was a mutual help and occupancy program. Stephen will know that's the house that I grew up in, and that whole block, that was that program. And all of this had to be set in place before the ground was broken. But with Nahasda and everything that came into play, it's not like that anymore. So I was saying that we need to go back to that. All the entities that are involved in housing and transportation and water and sewer need to go back to the drawing board and sit down at a round table, take your hats off, start sharing ideas. And that's what we need to do. And potentially, we can start that conversation now. We can start it tomorrow. We can start it anytime. But the symposium is going to be a really good tool to touch on all of these things that we need to discuss. And a lot of breakout sessions like we're doing now. If anything, if it turns out anything like we had discussions like here, would be great. So we're looking forward to it, and that'll be a great tool to utilize to get all of these things out in the open and start discussing them.
Yeah, one idea, I see your hand, Bessie. One idea, Eric, is that if we did meet in December or, after the new year, that we could help, that the discussion here could help frame your symposium. I think, that to the degree that makes sense, like think about those topics. Go for it, Bessie.
Thank you, Shelley. I don't know why it took me so long to come up with this question. Eric keeps mentioning the symposium, which is usually pretty awesome. Is it only open to tribes?
Oh no, the first day is open to our 9 tribes, but we realize that there's a need out here for that. So the next 2 days are open to everyone. We have an open invitation to anybody that's welcome. Everybody's welcome. We had one at the Culture Center, and with things going the way they are now, we're still not sure if it's going to be in person or remote, half and half. So that's a decision we still need to make, and it's a day-by-day decision, as everybody understands. It's just a difficult time right now. And the last symposium we had was right before everything got bad. And we were actually the first entity in the whole state to offer masks during our conference. And we've been trying to keep things safe. So even before mask mandates were discussed or anything, we saw this coming, so we try to plan ahead and offered masks to everybody. So we just want to make sure that everybody's safe. We keep things safe. We're not sure if it's going to be in person or yet, but we want your input. We want to know how you guys want to do it. This is your symposium. We're just the folks holding it, but your input, the tribe's input, the community's input, that's who we're doing it for. So it's really up to you how you want this to roll out.
Thank you.
Thanks, Eric. And thanks for the question, Bessie. Any other
Yep, thank you.
lingering questions out there? Oh, okay, everyone. So maybe I will just thank very much Eric for the guidance and your facilitation and the partnership and leading this dialogue today. And thanks everyone again for your participation, really rich discussion. And I think we learned a lot and we were able to update and talk about progress on projects. I also really appreciate everyone's patience as we had a really unique opportunity to get an update on the infrastructure package from Senator Murkowski's team. So thank you again, Cordelia. And I did get a chance to say goodbye to Jerry as she had to sign off, and told her I hope she gets to come home soon to her home region. And to Amber as well, we really appreciate you all. And then to the full team, again, a repeat, but we have recorded all of these discussions. We have taken really detailed notes, and our goal as a team is to turn these around within the next couple of weeks. And part of that is pinging folks to ask about second meetings, because it sounds like a part 2 was really desired among, I think, almost every group. So we'll have a chance to think about the coordination that needs to happen for that. And thanks, Cordelia, appreciate it. And Cordelia, I'm doing some work in Wainwright, so we'll have to connect on that at some other time. I know. All the worlds collide, and it's super awesome. I love working with folks in Wainwright. Okay. Hey, everyone. We have 3 minutes to spare, and maybe we use that to take a deep breath and hug our families and enjoy the rest of our Fridays, or get the rest of your work done before you dive into your weekend. So thank you again for an amazing 2 days, and looking forward to more continued discussions and implementation of the CEDS and all of the partnerships. And with that, we're just very honored for the opportunity to work with you all. Have a great weekend. Please stay healthy and safe out there. And thank you for your really thoughtful comments and feedback.
Thank you, everybody.
Have a good weekend, everyone.
Shelley, really quick before we get off.
Yeah.
As our new tradition, we're going to take a selfie.
Oh, I love. Okay, good. Everybody, show your faces.
Can you guys get on the screen really quick?
Let's see your beautiful faces for 2 seconds. Oh, you're all so lovely.
I'm going to make you all famous on Facebook, so just be prepared for that.
Oh my gosh.
All right, folks. Thank you for an awesome conference. Thank you. Smile. Thank you so much, Shelley. Thank you, Beck, and everybody that came on. You know, Shelley's done a great job of putting these together, and it's just been an amazing time to have conversations with everybody, and get to see your faces is great too. So thank you, Shelley. Thank you, Beck. Thank you, everybody, for joining, and we hope to see you guys at our symposium.
Okay, bye. Great weekend all.
Everybody.